NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever. So if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go. All right, we've got another episode of the Lunatic Fringe going. I am once again the fucking pilot in the can. This time I'm on my own, but long distance via Skype, we've got somebody with a whole lot to say about this lifestyle. So tell me, who are you?
My name is Dan Brodsky-Chenfeld.
Dan B.C, if I'm not mistaken.
That's Brodsky-Chenfeld's a mouthful, so it got shortened to BC the first day I ever walked on a drop zone. They couldn't fit Brodsky-Chenfeld on the handwritten manifest, so.
So now what drop zone would that have been?
I started jumping. Actually, it was a tiny little drop zone north of Columbus, Ohio, in Centerburg, with a little 172 and a little hut where we kept all the old rigs in and a grass strip, and then moved when the fall came and that little drop zone closed. It was always closed in the fall and winter. I went down to Greene County Sport Parachute Center in Xenia, Ohio, and that's where I did most of my growing up.
Nice. So Middle America skydiving. So it was definitely seasonal when you were learning how to jump.
It definitely was. Greene County was open all year round if it was possible to be. So if the sun was shining, we were jumping in the winter out of, Cessnas and Twin Beaches with no doors and freezing our butts off.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man. That's a cold way to go.
You know what? We couldn't do without it though. First, we'd go up, take one jump, come down and warm up for an hour, and then go back up and do another one.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. Now, was skydiving your first extreme sport, or did you do anything before that kind of led you down that path?
Nope, this was it.
What was the motivation for that first jump?
I think I was, as a little kid, just always dreamt of flying. The little kids fantasize about different things, and for me, it was pretending I could fly. Watching birds flying in the sky, watching Superman fly, thinking, how cool would that be?
Right.
That is the coolest superpower of all. Then I saw, this was back in the 60s. There was a TV show, I think it was Ripcord or one of the old shows. Yeah, and I saw people in free fall and flying, and it looked like, man, they're flying. They are really flying.
Absolutely.
And I thought that's as close as we can come to human flight, so I'm doing it. So from the time I was 5 or 6 years old, I was looking for the opportunity to jump, and as soon as I turned 18, I found it.
So 18 years old, you made your first jump. How did mom and dad and the family feel about that?
I kind of told them when I had 30 or 40 jumps. So
Fair enough.
I thought it was better they didn't know, and they agreed.
What is that? Better to ask forgiveness than permission?
Yeah, there's no reason to worry them like that. I didn't know what I was doing it anyway. So once I realized this was going to become a lifestyle of sorts, and I was really just in love with the sport and going every weekend, I thought I better own up to it and let my parents know.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and we're also talking about a time in skydiving when, it was still extreme. Not that it's not dangerous nowadays, but we've been able over the years to mitigate dangers quite a bit. But back then, it was all still being learned.
Yeah, it was a really great time to get started in the sport. Did my first jump in 1980, which, some people think, man, you were a pioneer in the sport, but that's not it at all, because all the hard work had really already been done. The equipment had developed quite a bit, but it was in a transitional time. So I had the pleasure of enjoying the roots of skydiving. We did my first jumps were static line with round parachutes. All free fall by yourselves. There was no AFF or tandem or AADs or anything like that.
Sure.
So I had to learn in that world, but it was all those other things and those developments were close behind. So I'm glad I didn't miss out on that, but I'm also glad I didn't have to spend a decade there.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Now, having learned in the older style again, going at it from static line and then not having AFF and all that, you must just be thrilled with the advances, but do you think it took anything away from the sport?
I think it added way more than it took away. Back in 1980, the people who would make a first jump were a very unique breed. It pretty much was people from 18 to 30 years old, hardly anybody older than that. And few people that started jumping kept jumping late and past their mid 30s or so, because
Sure.
it beat you up too much. And so it was an interesting group and a unique group, but it didn't have a chance to open up to all the people who really wanted to jump. And now, we've got people, if you have the desire to jump out of an airplane, if you look at it like I did and think that's got to be the most incredible thing in the world, and you want to jump, you can.
Yeah.
You've taken people who are 100 years old on tandems, and people who come now and learn to jump. They decide they want to get into the sport when they're in their 50s or 60s. And they can do that now. They couldn't have done that before.
Oh, very much true. Even the technologies that's changed in my time in the sport, we went from the older F-111 tandem canopies that were open like train wrecks and you just beating yourself up left, right, and center. And the technology has changed even dramatically just in my 20-something years in the sport. But the changes that you've seen have been wonderful for sure. What do you think the best change has been?
Wow. That's a lot. I have to go back to the training. Being able to learn doing tandem and AFF, I think, has been huge. I think it's kept so many people in the sport. I think it allowed people, people didn't start jumping. Back when I did, it wasn't that I wanted to go do a static line.
Sure.
I wanted to free fall. I wanted to fly, but you had to do all the static line jumps in order to get to free fall. Then you had to free fall by yourself before you could go with anybody else. So it was a lot that went into it before you ever got to experience what it was you really were seeking. And now you start right off with that. And I think it it gives people an opportunity to really see what the sport has to offer, and to learn in a safe, more secure environment. So I think the equipment as well as the training methods are really at the core of what's changed everything.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm actually just behind you in that I did come in after AFF was prevalent, and of course that's how I learned how to jump. And I can't fathom, because I was trained the way I was, having learned one jump at a time in free fall by myself. It's almost as alien to me as I think it is to some kids that have learned how to fly in a wind tunnel these days.
It was horrifying.
It had to be. It had to be.
You'd exit. We did the static line jumps from 2,800 feet, and the first solo free falls were clearing poles from 3,200 feet. And there were no AADs, or anything like that. And then your 5-second delays were from 3,600 feet, which you would usually, be completely unstable for 5 seconds and then just dump anyway because you had to. And each one, it was a complete solo thing. You'd exit the airplane and arch like crazy and hope for the best.
Oh, man. It's to think back about it, it's a pretty insane way to start out in the sport, and I have to imagine that just the fear factor alone would weed a lot of people out that way.
It almost weeded me out. I really wanted to fly like I'd seen people do on those shows, but it was just had to fight through the fear every time. And as soon as you finally, I remember spinning like a top for 10 seconds. Just,
oh, man.
Thinking my helmet was going to come off, spinning so fast. And, finally one time was able to just actually get control of myself and stay stable and not spin. And like, wow, okay.
Yeah,
finally, I have a little bit of control of what's going on here.
That was the hook, huh?
That was it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, so you go through this insane training that just has got to be ridiculously mentally stressful, and you get through it to the other side where you're actually in control. When does your skydiving career start funneling into this lifelong pursuit and passion? I mean, did you start working in the sport right away? Did you just embrace being a fun jumper?
I was going to Ohio State University. It was my freshman year when I made my first jump. And as soon as I went, the little center that I started at closed in the fall, and I went down to Greene County there, and I was there all the time. And they offered me a job to basically do everything. The jobs. Sure. You've seen the jobs. You're packing the parachutes, washing the planes, mowing the grass, cleaning the bathrooms, doing everything there is to do. And the pay was free jumps,
which is amazing.
And I told him, you don't realize how many jumps I can make. And he was counting on me not making that many. And this was all out of Cessnas and, in Twin Beaches and things. But I made 700 jumps my second year.
Oh my goodness.
Doing that out of those planes. And I would stay up all night and pack. We had about 100 student rigs at the drop zone, and we'd use them all day long, but we didn't need to repack during the day. So then I just stay up all night packing all the rigs and get back on the first load in the morning.
Oh,
you can
man.
do this stuff you can do this when you're 18 and 19.
Right. Well, you were just a monster about it. That's amazing.
And while I was in college, just working at the drop zone, got my rigger's ticket, got my instructor rating, got my pilot's license, and it became, my full-time job. And after I graduated at 22, I took over the drop zone. That was a DZO at 22.
22 years old and a DZO. Jeez, man.
I wasn't real bright.
You were certainly ambitious, though. That's for damn sure.
I was way more ambitious than I was smart, for sure.
That seems to be a common theme.
And the first year I had the drop zone is when tandems came out and we started doing AFF. So we immediately started incorporating square student rigs. This is in 1984, where it was really early, one of the first drop zones to do that. And tandem rigs without drogues. Drogues weren't developed yet.
Sure.
And it was just went right into it. So then right out of college, it was a business basically for me. if you could call it that at the time.
Boy, tandem rigs without drogues, that's kind of funny because, of course, in a modern tandem course, you're required to do that one drogeless jump to experience what it's like. And it freaks most people out. So I can't imagine doing that on a daily. That must have been interesting.
We did our W with them all the time at like 180 miles an hour.
Oh, man. That's some hardcore flying. You're at 22 years old. You're running the drop zone right at the biggest transitional time in the sport for modern skydiving, because this is when it's finally accessible to the general public. I mean, you guys must have just been crazy busy.
It was an interesting time because we had the round parachutes. Everybody was still using rounds, and there was just a few drop zones in the country that started transitioning to squares. But it was a hard thing to express to the new jumpers. They would call. I mean, obviously, we had static line square and static line round. The static line round was like $50. Static line square was $125. And then drop zone right down the street just had rounds, and people couldn't. We'll do the $50 one. They didn't understand why the squares was so much better.
Sure. And
as soon as we got the square rigs, the first day we offered both round and square classes. And I remembered both classes, two static line classes. They both got out about the same time of day. We took them both up and we dropped the rounds, and the rounds would, drift as they would and land wherever they landed. And the squares, we had them on radios, and they would come in and just tiptoe land in right where they're supposed to. And I watched those two, and I thought, man, just get rid of the rounds. We're not offering this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the future staring you right in the face right there. That's
So there's no way we can even give this option to people to go ahead and jump this stuff. So we went just to squares then, and it was with all the other drop zones still doing rounds and doing at a much lesser fee. It was hard to get by, but it was the top quality training. It was AFF, it was tandem, it was static line squares, and we even did an adjusted accelerated static line where they do their 5 static lines, but then we take them up on a level 1 because we didn't want to put them out solo.
Sure.
So, and this is all, like I said, this is in 84, 85, really early on in this.
And
That's how we did it.
It just kept going and going from there. I mean, I can't, the innovations that have happened between then and now in training and in skill are just too many to count.
Yeah, it's fabulous to see.
It really, really is. So you started out CEO of this drop zone at 22 years old, and how long were you there?
I was there for about 5 years. I had already started competing before I graduated from college, so I got on a 4-way team. And part of the reason for taking over the drop zone was so that I could keep doing 4-way. And things weren't working out as well at the drop zone as I had hoped with the previous owners. And there was the French team was sponsored, the French 4-way team was sponsored by TAG, the TAG watch company.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly they upped the ante completely. These guys started doing 1,000 jumps a year, and they had their own airplane, and they had 2 rigs, and they had people packing for them, and they had video, and they had a coach, and nobody ever had anything like this before.
Sure.
And suddenly, if we wanted to stay competitive, we were going to have to up the ante also, because we were doing 150 jumps a year or so, and just in Ohio. So I decided if I wanted to try to win the world championships, I was going to have to get out of the drop zone business in Ohio and try to full-time train somewhere with the team.
Which is, I mean, yeah, at that point, that's the only way to go. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the things that's always been difficult for a United States team on kind of a global competitive market is that the U.S. doesn't really sponsor. And for the longest time, it was tough for athletes to just be able to afford to do any type of training.
Yeah, I mean, when it was just a weekend thing, we could all pull it off. But as soon as now it was going to require hundreds or 1,000 jumps, there was a much bigger commitment from everybody, and there was never any sponsorship. When I took off from Ohio, I found a team that I found guys that wanted to do this in Arizona, and we had to pay for all of our jumps, pack for ourselves. We were living in our vans, eating out of coolers and loving life.
I'm sure you'll probably agree. Everybody that I've talked to so far, over and above the jumping, if you ask anyone what their favorite part of skydiving is, it's the community of it as well. Just the people and the vibe and the way skydivers tend to live life to the fullest. And I'm guessing you feel the same way, especially if you've done stuff like this.
Well, you got to realize the skydiving, if you're jumping your ass off, is still maybe 10 minutes a day.
Sure.
But you're hanging out with everybody and putting the effort into it for probably 10 hours a day. It takes the combination of both. When I look at people who really stick with the sport, and even starting with students right now, or the people like ourselves who've been doing it for a lot longer, you have to love the sport. I mean, you have to love jumping and flying and the freedom of it all. You've got to have that passion for the sport, but that's not enough on its own. You also have to love the community, the friends, the vibe. It's such a great group of people.
It really is, and I've likened it to the whole band of brothers type of mentality. You're just such a tightly knit group, putting yourself in harm's way to some degree, but also having an amazing time with it. I don't know how you don't end up bonding like crazy with that group of people.
And you look at the different personalities. I mean, it's the most varied group of individuals you could ever find in one place, from every ethnicity, every economic background, every sexual orientation, everything you think of. We've got them all at the drop zone, and none of it matters.
Not at all.
Nobody really cares, as long as we have two rules at Skydive Paris, two very important rules: don't be dangerous, and don't be an asshole.
Awesome.
And and for the most part, that's it. You can be as weird and as funny and wacky as you want. We prefer it. Just adds more entertainment for all of us.
Oh, it definitely keeps it more entertaining. There's no doubt about that.
But it's great. Where else do you find people who are from 18 to 85 years old hanging out together, having a good time, laughing?
Well, and that varied age range and background, but all with common ground, which is it can be a very odd thing. I remember the first big drop zone that I ever worked at and was busy at. One of the employees would come out and jump on his days off, but his full-time job was working as a police officer in a narcotics division, and one of our active fun jumpers was a very active pot dealer. And they had just this unspoken rule that on the drop zone it was all good, but you don't want to get caught off the drop zone.
No, that's the epitome of it right there.
It really was. It summed it up quite well. I'm like, all right, well, so yeah, this is just kind of a different world. So you go to Arizona, you find a bunch of like-minded guys that want to go out and bust out some badass four-way. Where does that go to?
Well, we stayed in Arizona and we just wanted to win. We did 800 jumps that year. Like I said, and there was no sponsorship or anything. This is just sold everything but our souls in order to do it. We were working the drop zone, so I'd be flying and doing AFF or tandems, whenever we weren't jumping. And we were hoping to win the Nationals that year, and we got to the Nationals and had an amazing battle with the top teams and ended up in third.
Which is still, considering the kind of sponsorship and such that you're going up against, is pretty damn spectacular.
It was a good competition, but it was certainly less than we wanted. When you're playing to win that much, you're hoping to come back with it. But it was a tight competition, and after that, we thought, well, we're out of money, we're out of time. We'd run out of peanut butter and jelly.
Sure.
And really figured it was probably over. How else would we manage to pull it off again? And that was one of the first times that any drop zone ever considered sponsoring a team. I think it was the first time.
Wow.
We were in Coolidge, Arizona, which was Skydive Arizona at that time. Larry Hill, who is the owner of the drop zone, we were there. The year before, I'd become great friends with Larry. And after he saw what our team did, he said, man, I want you guys to do it again. And we thought, well, that's great, but we're kind of broke, at this point. And he said, well, I've got work. He had enough stuff he wanted to do on the drop zone that, between building new facilities and flying and jumping and whatever we managed to trade work for the jumps.
Nice. So you were working instructing. You were a jump pilot as well. So you were kind of a jack of all trades. So where did the sponsorship and the training end up taking you?
Well, we stayed very competitive. In '91, they had to we still didn't make it. Our goal was to win the national championships and make it to the world championships, and still came up short of doing that. And again, the team had kind of run its course. Teams don't last forever.
Sure.
Everybody was ready to head in different directions after '91, and then in '92, I had an offer from Skydive Paris to move to Paris and to start a team there.
Wow. Paris out in California, for those that don't know, and any of the younger jumpers that are out there, there's not too many drop zones that are must do's and must sees, but Paris is certainly one of them. It's actually the first drop zone I ever jumped out of a turbine at.
Yeah, and this is in '92, and I had been to Paris before. Actually, when I left Ohio, I was hoping to start a team in Paris then, but it worked out that the team happened in Arizona, so this was kind of an opportunity I'd hoped for. And it was an unheard of thing. I mean, they wanted me to start a team, and that would be basically my job, which again, is completely unheard of.
And kind of a dream come true, really.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was amazing. So we started a team called Paris Air Moves in the end of '91. Kept moving that direction.
Nice. So end of '91, you started the team up. What was your first competition with the team?
We had, I believe it was the Valentine's Day meet in Arizona, and the Golden Knights were there. Some of the other good teams as well.
Sure. And now, how long did that team stay together?
Air Moves, Air Moves went through a lot of issues and had the team for 2 years. Different personnel, but kept the team together for '92, '93.
Okay, all right. Now, and you're still in Paris Valley now, yeah?
I am. But after '93, then went to Arizona and started Arizona Airspeed.
I believe even the young ones have heard of them.
And so we started that. We started Airspeed originally in '94, and then I stayed on the team till '99, then came back as an alternate on the team 2001, and moved to Paris 2003.
Okay, so back and forth.
Try to put it all in an abbreviated.
Back and forth in between some sunny spots for sure. But Arizona Airspeed, I mean, you're talking about one of the most winning teams skydiving has ever seen. That must have been one hell of a ride.
It was great. I mean, we put together basically an Air Moves team in Paris and a team out of DeLand led by Jack Jeffries was trying to win the World Championships, and we would battle it out at the Nationals every year. But no matter who went to the World Championships, they got beat by the French team with their sponsorship with the tag company. So we thought the only way we were going to manage to take them down is if we all got together, stopped competing against each other, and put a new team together. So we combined what we thought was the best players from California and Florida and met in Arizona and started the team in '94, and we won the World Championships for 6 years.
That's just incredible. Incredible. I remember watching, my time in the sport started in '96, so by '96, Airspeed was already the dominant force for sure in four-way competitions, and I remember it just being the most spectacular thing to see because it just didn't even look real, the type of flying that was happening. It was amazing. It
was so much fun. I've valued those years immensely, and to see how far four-way has come since then. It just blows me away.
I just watched, and I forget what team it was, training in one of the tunnels, and then the point numbers that are being put up now are just beyond belief. And for the lower time skydivers that don't really know a lot about it, give me a super brief rundown of how a four-way team competes and wins.
Well, just about everybody has seen pictures of free fall formations where you have, a group with four-way, it's 4 people, but you could have 8 with 8-way or 100 people. But most everyone has seen pictures of free fall formations. So in 4-way and 8-way or any formation skydiving competitions, you've got a sequence of 5 or 6 formations. each of the formations is defined by how the group is configured. And the pictures are pretty obvious. So you have different grips on each other. You're arranged in different ways. Each formation is worth 1 point. In four-way, you have a time clock starting from the moment you exit, and it goes for 35 seconds to race through the sequence of formations as many times as you can, with each one scoring 1 point. And it also has to be done perfectly. Each formation has to be intact. You have to show each one with all the grips together, and then everyone has to break simultaneously, so everyone is apart in between the formations and then getting back together.
Sure.
So if you can't, if you are not in sync in terms of when you get off the grips, then you can be deducted points as well.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's a race. It's a very mental sport because you won't have known what the sequence of formations is going to be until you get to the competition. There's a dive pool with about 40 different formations, so you've practiced them all, but you don't know what the sequence is going to be. And you don't get to practice other than on the ground. So it's a very mental sport also, which is a big part of what's so enjoyable about it.
Well, and I think all of skydiving has a much larger mental side to it than a lot of non-jumpers would imagine, but especially in something like that. Now, when you guys got started in your four-way career, what would have been a good score when you were beginning, and what's a good score towards the end of your team time? I mean, the numbers must have just gone through the roof.
When I first started, the World Championships, I believe, were won by 9 or 10 points.
Wow. Wow.
Once the French, when they got the sponsorship with TAG, took it to a whole new level. But I think in '89, they averaged somewhere around 15, 91, 17, and 20. Breaking the 20-point barrier was like the 4-minute mile for four-way. And there were no wind tunnels then either, keep in mind. So, it was only the jumps.
Sure.
There was no other practice you could do. There was no simulators. A lot of visualization and actual skydives.
Well, now let me ask you, seeing as how you got started when you didn't have any other way to practice but to do it on the ground, to visualize, and then to go to jump, what's your thoughts and what are your opinions on the wind tunnel?
Yeah, it's great. As any advancement is, it's great. When we have a wind tunnel at Skydive Paris, and we put all of our AFF students in there before they jump, and then again at certain levels, and just to speak to them, and they come out of there and are just so excited, so much more relaxed, so much more confident in what their abilities are, and to hear them when I tell them, that. We never had this, when I learned to skydive, and most places don't have it now. They can't even fathom that someone would jump out of an airplane without getting in the wind tunnel first. And just such an advancement in training. It's so much safer.
Oh, I completely agree.
Than it was. So many more people can learn to do it. I think it's fantastic. And as far as the skill goes, just to develop the skills so much more quickly and so much more efficiently. And it's taken the sport to a whole new level.
Well, I was very lucky. I was very, very lucky in that I was probably the first generation of skydivers that had the opportunity to fly pretty regularly in a wind tunnel, and was working as an instructor in the Las Vegas tunnel long time ago, one of the original tunnels out there. And because of it, ended up competing as a cameraman for a sky surfing team with someone you probably know, Mary Tortomasi, way back in the day.
Sure.
And she and I were able to do things because of that tunnel that we never would have imagined before. So I completely agree. It's been an amazing tool, especially for someone like me. It kind of shaped my entire career.
I think it's been nothing but positive. The only downside, I have seen it, is that people's flying skills advance more quickly than their awareness, than their instincts. And you become sometimes overconfident, and because of your skills, people have the skills to go do things in skydiving that they learned in the tunnel, but they don't have the experience and the awareness to go do the same thing safely. So sometimes when the skills accelerate more quickly than your awareness does, then I've seen it get people in a bit of trouble.
and I would imagine the same is true not just for the free fall portion of it too, but people go into it being amazing tunnel flyers, but still have a whole lot of gear fear involved, and that's just stuff that has to come through jumps.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have this amazing competition experience and running a DZ and all this, but you've also gone on to do quite a few other things still involving the sport, some and some outside. You've written a book. You do a lot of motivational speaking. How did all that stuff come about?
Well, the book, I was coaching the Russian 8-way team at Paris, and the sponsor of the Russian team was on the team. And he just pulled me aside one day and he said, "We've been coached by a lot of people, but nobody has taught us the things that you're teaching us." And he said, "I want you to write a book about it." And I said, "What would you want the book to be about?" And he said, "How to win the world meet." And I said, "Well, that's about 10% skydiving and 90% how to win anything else. I mean, the skydiving part is fairly simple." And he said, he goes, "Write whatever you want, but include the skydiving things also."
Wow.
And I said, "Man, I don't have time to write a book. I'm running the drop zone. I've got two young kids. I'm coaching these teams. I don't have time to write a book." And he said, "How long would it take?" And I said, "Well, it would take me 3 months just to brain dump onto paper all the different ideas,
Sure.
that go into this." And I said, "But that would not be a book. It would just be, pages of ideas." But he wanted to translate it into Russian and have a Russian skydiving book. I said, "So I could do this. Like after 3 months, I could just give it to you, and you could, translate it as you want and do something in Russia with it." And he actually paid me enough that I could work half time for 3 months. And I just wrote down the ideas for how to win the world meet. And, some of it was skydiving and some of it was just, the training aspect of it, the mental aspect of it, and, anything peak performance oriented regardless of the endeavor. And at the end of the 3 months, I gave him gave him about 200 pages of information, and he had lost interest. So, so I was sitting there with 200 pages that I had just written and nothing to do with it. And, I gave it to a few friends, and I really didn't have any, very many personal stories in there. That wasn't what it was about. It was something he asked me to write. But I had a couple of things that did have personal stories because I couldn't figure out a better way to make my point than using a story. So I gave it to a few friends, this a whole 200 pages, and just had them read it and ask, "Man, what should I do with this? What do you think of this?" And anytime you're getting feedback about writing, you're going to get different opinions from everybody.
Of course.
But the one thing that they all agreed on was that they really liked the personal stories, that the personal stories had more of an impact on them and were more worthwhile than the other parts. So my kids were young at the time, and I thought, if I was really going to write a book, what would I want it to be about? And I said, I wouldn't want it to be a skydiving book as such. I wouldn't want it to be just about skydiving. I'd want it to be something that my kids could read and get something out of, that hopefully friends could read and get something out of. So I started basically writing all the stories that I could think of and all the experiences I had that made me into somebody who would make decisions to follow their passions as much as I did, and to take on those challenges and overcome the obstacles that led to becoming a world champion.
Well, and it seems to me that it's the ability to overcome those personal obstacles that makes the sport so special. And I find that as I speak to more and more jumpers and you ask them their favorite memories of skydiving, aren't the jumps. It's the experiences around those jumps and the people and the stories and the reasons that everyone ended up there. So I completely agree that the personal stuff is kind of what makes this such an amazing sport.
Yep, I agree completely.
So you've had some amazing times. You've had some rough ones as well, though, too. I know that you've had to overcome some real hardships in the sport. You were involved in a pretty serious accident as well.
Yeah, that would have been in 1992 with my team Air Moves.
So what transpired on that occasion?
It was a beautiful April day in Southern California, and we were taking off on for a training jump, and the plane had an engine failure at about 150 feet. The pilot didn't, it's if the same thing had happened at 2,000 feet, it would have been a complete non-event. But at 150 feet, the pilot has to respond correctly and immediately, and didn't happen like that. And the plane crashed. We lost 16 of the 22 people who were on it. I was fortunate enough to survive.
That crash was skydiving lore as I came into skydiving, and a lot of the training that I went through, especially with the larger aircraft, came about specifically because of that crash. Now, you survived, but with some serious injuries. I mean, you had quite the rehab to get back and going again.
Yeah. I was out I was in a coma for about 6 weeks. Broke my neck, collapsed one lung, had all sorts of other, internal damage, just being banged up.
Sure.
But fortunately, they were all injuries that could be overcome.
Well, and I think it takes a strong will to push through that. Clearly, one that you have, and to be able to continue on the way that you did is pretty damn spectacular. I mean, you're still as active in the sport as anyone, and there's a lot of people, non-jumpers, that would wonder how you could manage to do that after living through something like that. I mean, that's pretty hardcore. What do you think? What pushed you through?
Well, like I said before, I'm not all that bright. So, and I, when I had the team in Paris, and from the time that I got out of college and was getting involved with skydiving, but mostly with the team in Paris with air moves, it really was honestly living my dream. I had the sport that I just loved. I had taken the sport and my teams to one of the highest levels. We hadn't won the world championships, but we were one of the best teams in the world. I had a team that I was just with my best friends. I had an opportunity on a drop zone to really push this team. I was, living your dream is the most overused phrase in the world. But once you've had the chance to experience life like that, you really don't want to let it go for anything. So I was fortunate enough that my spinal cord was intact. My internal organs were working well enough. There was no reason that I couldn't continue.
Which is, it's amazing. The drive and the desire, and then to physically still be able to do so is pretty spectacular. I actually had the opportunity to talk to a young jumper named Jarrett Martin, who had suffered a pretty bad accident in Hawaii and ended up paraplegic due to it. But 3 months later was back in the air on the front of a tandem with his father, and is now still an extremely active jumper. And I think it seems to be a very common theme that the passion that drives us to do this is pretty universal.
We're lucky to have something that we love this much. I think most people don't. Really don't.
Oh,
something that
I completely agree.
About. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I do. I have to call into question how people can sit behind a desk every day doing something that they hate for the promise that the weekend might not be so bad. I don't think there's a day that I go to work or make a skydive that I'm not ridiculously thankful that I still get to do this.
Yeah. I appreciate it every day.
So now you've got children. Do they jump as well?
Nope, they have no interest in skydiving.
How do you feel about that?
That's okay with me. Just want them to find things that they love as much as I love this.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what they are.
I always found that I had mixed feelings about my daughter either becoming or not becoming a skydiver, and she's done a couple of jumps, but doesn't have that huge passion for it. And I'm just like you. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, it's not normal, man.
No, it's not normal, is it?
I see people sometimes wanting to get in the sport for some other reason than they're just fascinated by it and they just love it. Once in a while there's people who are trying to prove something to themselves, or it's a midlife crisis or some kind of macho trip they're on, and that never works out.
No, it never does.
Be just because you love it, and it's fine with me that my kids this isn't what attracts them. But they understand, though, that they want to find something they love as much as I love this, and pursue that.
Well, and I can't imagine that they don't look, even if skydiving isn't their thing, they have to have a great appreciation for it just because of the passion that it drives in you. I mean, what a great example to be set for them, that it doesn't matter what it is, you have that passion for as long as you find it.
Absolutely. Hopefully it's legal.
Yeah, hopefully. So what comes next for Dan B.C.?
Well, I'm really enjoying running the drop zone and trying to make Skydive Paris the best drop zone in the world. And it's even the stuff that comes with sitting behind the desk, and the moments that, like you were talking about, that you have to deal with as well. That those things that themselves aren't the fun, but the goal is so rewarding, and the goal is so much fun that it's worth doing the other things that you, of course, have to do.
Well, and I would imagine, too, from your position, because of all the experience that you've got behind you and your draw and drive to make this such an amazing drop zone, that even the bullshit paperwork and the stuff that you don't want to have to deal with is still the means to an end to make it just a spectacular place.
Yep, it sure is. And it's, look back to skydiving is the perfect example of it. You may, for your 1 minute of skydiving, or 2 minutes if you want to count the canopy ride as well, you've got to spend 10 minutes packing, 20 minutes in the airplane, 10 minutes dirt diving, whatever, all the stuff that goes into it, just because that 1 minute is so great. So it's worth investing all the other parts. They're just part of it.
Well, and Paris as a drop zone was the first one that I went to that had such a full community, and I was lucky enough to start jumping in that place when free flying was really taking over, and the Flyboys called that place home. And so to go out and to see, my personal heroes at the time that I had just watched on their VHS Chronicles video doing all these incredible things, and next thing you know, I'm on the plane and I'm sitting next to Fritz or Eli, or next thing you know, I'm competing against Tanya and Craig, who destroyed us in sky surfing, but it was still an amazing time, and that was all. Paris Valley was just the West Coast mecca, and I don't think it's ever really slowed down. I mean, Paris Valley is one of the premier drop zones, not just in the U.S., but in the world. So what an amazing place to be running.
And it's a great, it's a great community. All the different people from the different disciplines, it's all one family. It's all everybody sharing the skies, sharing the planes, sharing the drop zone. Really impressed and respectful of everybody else's, passion, everybody else's discipline. It's all skydivers having a great time together. No matter how you like to fly, it just doesn't
No,
make
it
a
really
difference.
doesn't, because around the bonfire, no style comes into play. It's just a bunch of skydivers, That was one of the other points that got brought up. And Paris is a very international drop zone as well, people coming from all around the world. But I'm sure you've done a fair bit of traveling for skydiving, and it doesn't matter where you go. It's just skydivers with different accents.
So true.
So to find your book and to find out more information about Paris Valley, have we got websites we can send them to, Instagram accounts? Where should everybody go looking to get the book and to hear about the drop zone?
Skydiveparis.com is the website, and also on Facebook as well. The book is titled Above All Else. You can find it on Amazon or at Square One. And myself, I have a website, which is just Brodsky-Chenfeld.com, which is a mouthful. Probably should have made it Dan B.C, but it's got it all.
So we need to get everybody out there to check out the book, Above All Else, Skydive Paris Valley. If you've never jumped before, you want to make a first-time skydive, and you're out in California, definitely Southern California, head out to Paris Valley, skydiveparis.com. All right. Anything else? Any parting words for people that haven't made any jumps yet, or young jumpers that are looking for a little bit of inspiration? What do you want to say to them?
If you're on the fence and you've been thinking about it, the best thing to do is just come out to the drop zone for a day and watch. Most people have an impression for what they think a drop zone is going to be, and they're pretty shocked when they see it's nothing like that at all. And Paris is a great place. We've got a nice restaurant, pool. You can just hang out and watch people do their first jump, watch all the experienced jumpers, and really get a feel for the community that it is, as well as the incredible sport that it is.
Well, I couldn't recommend it more as well. I mean, even if they're only going to come out and do one jump, I've seen a lot of people that might not do a second, but I've never seen anybody regret doing that first one.
And you'll be amazed how many people do their second. We have at Paris right now, it's amazing how many people are sticking with the sport who have started. We had like 30-something percent of our AFF students got licensed last year.
That's incredible. That's really high numbers.
Yeah,
wow, I'm impressed.
It's crazy, but it's because of the community. As you said, people don't realize they go out, they do their first jump, they have an amazing experience on the jump, and they also realize this is a great place, great people. I'd like to be more a part of this.
Well, and luckily for us, I don't think skydiving's going anywhere. It's just going to keep getting more innovative and more creative and even more fun.
I agree.
All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you talking to us, and hopefully we get a whole bunch of people out your way in Paris to come make some jumps and have a whole lot of fun.
Great. Thank you, Dean. It's been a pleasure, man.
Take care. Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Get on the fire, get on.